Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to Hobby Hi-Fi. Guess what we're doing this morning on this third day of rain. Just got hit with a nor'easter. Knocked out power to 320,000 people in Maine on April 4th or 5th. Anyway, day 3 of no power. What do you do on a day like that? Refoam speakers. Luckily, I got a delivery. The mail person was able to make it to the mailbox and gave me my 2 sets of foams. One for a set of Boston Acoustics hd5s, which is a 5-inch woofer. The story on Boston Acoustics and most speakers is that you want to try to use the original drivers if you can. Now these are sort of a popular or a common speaker that it's very small. These are probably, I don't know, 10 inches high. But for the size, great little speaker. Boston Acoustics has always been one of my favorites since the 70s. Had some very interesting designs. They always seem to make their own stuff, and they always seem to keep pretty tight control on their manufacturing. Always had great bang for your buck, and great sound. Almost every model that I've ever listened to, Boston Acoustics is no spring chicken when it comes to great sound. These are, you know, not I guess you wouldn't call them a real high-end driver by today's standards, but I got to say, there's a nice big magnet on the back of these, and they just are made well. I don't know what else to say about them. So these are probably, I don't know, 30 years old maybe. And so what we're going to do is try to breathe new life into these. It's common that pretty much just the woofers is the issue. Over age, I guess I can show you the box. The box is kind of a cute little thing. Again, made well. Nice rubber grommets for the grills. The grills fit tight. The boxes are well made. Standard, you know, vinyl wrap. This is one of my least favorite things, is probably these spring clip terminals, which I guess if you were fired up enough about it, you would replace those. But you can see they put some acoustic stuff in here, some fiber fill, and the tweeter is, I think, what you would call a polycarbonate tweeter. Not a high-grade tweeter, but honestly, you know, it's just one of those tweeters that doesn't really sound that bad for the money, you know. So I don't know. It's just amazing what Boston was able to do on some of these products for very little money. You know, I mean, I'm gonna guess they probably had 40 bucks a pair in these speakers, maybe 50, and they probably sold them for $1 or $1.50. But you know, pretty good profit margin there. But everything else is pretty standard. You know, but again, you know, if you're looking for something that's, I don't know, maybe 10 inches high. Not a bad speaker, I'll tell you that. And so I just wanted to kind of go over a couple of things. You know, what the reason for the degradation is this foam, and you know, it just becomes so broken down that it just sort of crumbles and falls apart like sawdust. You know, it's just completely just hit its age limit, which I suppose we all do, or everything does. And foam is one of them. So the standard procedure with Boston Acoustics, they have used what we call filletted foams. Strange word. There's not really a better word that I can use to describe these. So filletted it is, and what that means is that there's a kind of a constant taper from the inside of this roll. Just kind of tapers right off at an angle with no real secondary lip to speak of, like this outside lip. So it's what we call filletted, and there's a couple of people on eBay that I get these from. I believe these came from Midwest Speaker Supply, but you can always do a search and find these special foams, which is what Boston Acoustics used originally. And you can see this old foam has the same angle to it. When it hits that inside roll, it just has a steady taper to that inside roll. So we always try to do things exactly like the manufacturer did, because I'm not going to go to the spot and say that anything that I would do would be any better than what these people at Boston Acoustics have done. They did everything for a reason, and I'm going to say that even the foams, you know, it would be nice to say, let's put some rubber surrounds on these, because rubber does not age per se, and if it does, it's going to take an awful lot longer time. These particular foams will probably good in the right environment, if they're not exposed to huge temperature changes and a lot of mold and possibly high humidity. Good for about 10 years, possibly 15, typically. So if you have a pair of Bostons that you're going to buy on Craigslist or anywhere, eBay, you know, you got to find out, you know, what the condition of those foams is in, because 9 times out of 10, if they're over 15 years old, they're going to be rotted or will soon rot. So plan on that when it comes to buying used stuff, and make sure that you know what you're getting into, that any of the Boston stuff, you're going to probably need to refoam it. And not a huge deal. These were around $20 a pair, so they're about double what the regular foams are. You know, which is unfortunate, but I think that there is maybe a more limited supply. I'm yet to find the actual manufacturer of these filletted foams, but the guys that know where to find them obviously are getting them for less than $20 a pair. I'm surprised I haven't been able to find the source for these filletted foams, but until then I will keep going to my friends on eBay, the guys that seem to have that in connection with these types of things. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of go over some basics. What you want to do once you get that get this foam off, and basically my tools are this is my favorite tool, is an X-Acto chisel tip, a large one, and you're probably going to want to find some of these extra chisel tips, because they do get gummed up, and you can clean them with isopropyl, or you can, you know, sand them or file them, get them cleaned up again, but they seem to get gooped up pretty quickly when you're doing this type of thing, removing glue and adhesive. So it's good to have some extra tips around. My favorite is the sort of large chisel tip. I believe it's X-Acto number 18. And when you're getting into scraping this frame down in here, really helpful to have a good rugged, something that you can clean all of that surface off of the old adhesive, which sometimes can be very difficult, hard. So you have to sort of be patient with that. Once you get a flat surface, you know, you're good to go. So I got all that stuff off. You can see that, I don't know, this is kind of strange, but it almost seems like another gasket on there, but I'm going to say that, well, maybe they did put a gasket down. It seems just too perfect, but this is where the adhesive was, and I was able to peel this off from that frame almost all in one piece, which is a little different than I'm used to. So I have reason to believe that they may have actually taken a separate piece and doped that with glue on both sides, maybe to allow, it might have even been an adhesive pad of some sort. I'm not quite sure, but you know, some kind of peel and stick deal. But that's interesting. I've never had one come off quite that cleanly. But that's how they hooked that foam down on there. And of course, doing it straight is the other thing. And a lot of times, you know, I have to rely on my good old eyeball when I put this down. And that's kind of the tough part. If you look around, so what I do first is, once I get this all clean, I will just put try as accurately and as uniformly and as possible right around the outer edge of that cone. And I'm going to say that your strip of glue, your little bead of glue that you lay down on top of this cone first, and you always want to do this inside where the surround meets the cone first, and then afterwards you can always, you know, go down over this outer lip here. So anyway, you want to be kind of careful, because on this particular one, it looks like I decided to warm the glue up. It had been sitting for a while. There was some unused containers of glue. I decided to put them in a tin can, put them up on the stove and warm them up for a little bit. And that may have been sort of a mistake, because as you can see, I'm kind of a neat freak, and this didn't come out to my expectation as far as cleanliness goes and accuracy. You can see I got a little bit too far. So what happened when I opened the used bottle of glue, which is probably a couple of years old at this point, had a little bit of a mess at first, you know, getting that glue to come out of the container in a uniform way. And so I got a little too much in some of these areas, you can see, and I'm not really pleased with that. Now this will dry clearly, this particular glue, and from what I understand, it is a certain kind of glue. It looks like you know, regular old Elmer's. From what I understand, it is not, and it's got a little bit more. What did they call? Was it a little bit more ether in it, or something a little bit different formulation? So they say. Made specifically for foams, so it's possible that if you don't use the right stuff, that may further, you know, lead to the degradation of this foam and where it meets, because that's sort of where your magic spot is. So anyway, you have to sort of eyeball it, and you can eyeball it. There's a little rim if you look on the outside of this cone. If you can sort of leave the same amount of space all the way around when you're looking at this, you know, have a guide like that, so that's helpful. Try to end up completely having the same amount of distance in regards to that little lip that you can see. There's a little line there. So anyway, this should dry okay and be all right, but definitely isn't one of my neater jobs. So next time, what I need to do is make sure that I've got more control on my glue dispenser, and try to put a little bit less of a bead around that outside to clean some of this up. Now, is it really a big deal? Probably not. You're going to have the grill covers on most of the time anyway. But when I look at some of these on eBay, and I'm looking at things that have been refoamed, I think it says a little bit about the person when the job is done very neatly and accurately. That means that they may have checked other things in the process and just sort of taken a little more care. The other way to align this is by the frame, and this is not always a perfect system because I have to think that there's got to be a little bit of margin of error when they make these frames as far in relation to the cones and the whole mechanism and the way things line up here. But another thing I try to do is sort of get a measurement, you know, in between the edge of the cone. Now you can see if I was to put the screwdriver in on this side, I can put just about the width of that screwdriver in and not touch the foam. On this side, I cannot. Pretty close, so I can tell by just a smidge that this foam has been put just a bit this way. So I was trying to kind of guide it that way a little bit, but who knows? So, you know, it's just I'm going to say it's probably a millimeter off, but is that enough to change how that you know, cone is going to ride? Is it going to be straight? It needs to be perfectly straight. If it's not, it's going to probably have more distortion, and it's going to possibly even hit the coil. The inside, if things don't run straight, it's going to be off center, and it's going to make some possibly popping noises, and just really be unusable at that point. You would have to redo it, which is a pain in the butt, with new foams and new glue. So anyway, we're going to hope that that's going to work. After this dries, we're going to go around and we're going to put the glue underneath this lip here and affix that to the frame, and hopefully that's usually a little bit easier. It's not quite as easy to get under there on something like this, but usually you can get your nozzle in underneath and just put a little bead of glue. Another thing that helps in that situation, to get that cone to sort of pop out a little bit, is give it a 9-volt battery, maybe a half full 9-volt battery source, and you'll have to figure positive to negative. Make sure you've got the right polarity here. But if you give that just a little, maybe a 3 or 4 volt push, what'll happen, and you just want to hook that up to your regular terminals here, positive and negative. And if once you get that cone to pop out, that'll allow you to get under that lip just a little bit better if that's an issue for you. I don't think it's going to be here, but if it is, you can always use that little battery trick. And the battery trick is also helpful sometimes to make sure that your cone is perfectly straight. If you're putting something down a little bit bigger, what you may do is you may push too far on one side of your cone and sort of be out of alignment that way. So it just makes sure that the cone has a little pressure on it electronically and mechanically to push it in the right direction, because it typically wants to go straight out, and especially when it's laying flat like this, and when you hit that battery, it's just going to pop completely straight up. And that is the natural way to make sure that your cone is aligned. But in this case, that as long as I've got that straight, that's going to fall down on that frame and should be relatively straight. But once again, I think they've got a better handle on the measurement and the mechanics of these situations in the factory. So I'm going to say that unless you're very meticulous, that refoaming can be a hit or miss situation. I do have another driver here that my buddy did. It's been in the business a long time, and it starts to hit the cone. It wasn't perfectly straight, apparently, but it's I've had good luck, but it's something that does take some time, some patience, and some exacting measurements in your mind, or a good eye, I would say, to be able to do this so it's as good as factory. One gentleman told me on a high-end pair of speakers once, forget about it, just buy the new driver. Spend the $100, $200, because we've tested it and we've ruled out anything over a certain amount of distortion. And we've put them in the B stock, or we've put them in the refurb, or we've put them, you know, had to redo them or throw them out. But, you know, if you're working with tight tolerances, you can measure with the technology today. You can measure what the distortion is, and I think that would, you know, transient response, things like that. There may be a way that they can very accurately test the way that woofer was put together and whether everything's perfectly straight or not. I think your distortion is going to rise if the more off axis anything is. So I think that's going to be able to be picked up by today's advanced tools. So anyway, I guess I'll wrap that up, and sorry it took so long, and once again, you know, I probably didn't need to go into this much detail or blabber this much, but here we are, and at some point maybe I can work on sort of paring down and maybe editing some of these videos. That'll be my next step, to learn how to run a video editor. And shorten up some of these and condense them for you. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.